Hey and welcome back to a new video. We gathered here again to worship this beautiful 12-volt high power connector, or maybe more a card that is another victim of this beautiful standard. Mike, who is a viewer of my channel, reached out to me and said that his RTX 4090 Tough Gaming is a victim of this beautiful standard and that he reached out to ASUS and they declined his RMA request. So he reached out to me if I can help him out replace the connector. That is one thing we want to investigate. And then the other topic is the WireView Pro 2. We made multiple updates to both firmware and software, and there's a couple of things I want to show you in today's video. You need serious performance for demanding workloads? Then check out Hetzner's AX line. With its own data centers in Germany and Helsinki, Hetzner offers powerful dedicated servers for professional use cases. The AX102 features an AMD Ryzen 9 7950X 3D with 16 cores and 32 threads, plus 128GB of DDR5 memory and two fast 1.92TB Generation 4 NVMe SSDs. The 7950X 3D combines 8 cores with 3 Vcache for low latency and 8 high-frequency cores for strong application performance. Whether you work with CAD, CAM, machine learning, 3D rendering or big data, the AX102 gives you a strong foundation for complex workloads. As a new customer, you can save $15 with the code DEBAUER15. You can find all the information in the link down below. The card is already partially disassembled, which is great. That will save me some time trying to replace the connector together with Eric, one of our engineers here at Grizzly. We will also, as I said, investigate the damage real quick. And also, to be fair, the chat between me and Mike went on for a couple of days, and in between ASUS then agreed to try to replace the connector for 83 euros. So there was this option to do it after just, going back and forth after the initial decline of the RMA request, but then they offered to still do it if he pays 83 euros. But then I already had agreed with Mike that he will send the card to me, so here we are. I would say this type of damage is exactly what we've seen multiple times by now. This is also a native 12-volt high power cable. I'm not sure exactly from which PSU this one is, but you can see the same type of damage. So the entire row between the sense pins, so the small ones, and the ground pins, the ones on the back, melted. So the entire 12-volt row here in between was affected, which also means that we will have to replace the connector. That is a typical damage, right? So this melts and a good amount of the plastic of the connector gets stuck into the connector of the card. Otherwise, it would be simple. You could just take it out and replace it with a new cable, but unfortunately, you always have a lot of residues and stuff in the 12-volt pins right here. So the only option to fix this is just replacing the connector as a whole. Another interesting thing is that also here both sides are affected. So that should be the GPU side, heavy damage, and the damage aligns to what we see in the connector or the socket of the GPU. But we can also see damage on the other side, especially on this pin right here. So Mike, if you're seeing this, make sure that you double check also the PSU side and also swap the PSU if necessary. Of course, people could claim now that they would expect some more detailed investigation from my side to figure out what went wrong with the cable, but to be fully honest, that's not quite realistic. The thing melted, so you will never have the original condition anymore. That makes it super hard to debug to see what went wrong, so we will just simply proceed with the repair of the card. I'm a bit in shock right now. Can you check the capacitors? I just can't believe that I caused this. You can see this one is almost ripped off and the bottom one is basically loose. I disassembled so many cards and I did it exactly the same way that I usually always do it. And did I just cause that damage? I have honestly no clue how this happened. I'm not sure if this just happened, if I caused this or not. But I mean, we have to solder anyway, so we can try to put the caps back on. I'm usually super careful, especially when it's not my own hardware, because I don't want to damage things further, right? But yeah, okay. The bottom cap fell off completely, but luckily you can see the legs are still there and also the pads are still on the PCB, so it should not be a big thing. I'm just a bit surprised. It's a pretty nice setup. You can see a lot of connectors have been replaced here. And as you can see, the previous connector is already removed. That was the old connector, and what I find kind of impressive is if you look at the side on the left, you can see how this portion melted to a certain degree, even all the way back to the pin in the housing. So there was definitely very high temperature. The card still has to cool down. You can see the new connector is in the spot, and also I attached the two capacitors again. I'm not super happy about the bottom one, but I think I will just try it first and see if it all works. That's the most important factor. I double checked the resistances to make sure that there is no short anywhere. That all looked good, so I can now assemble the card again and then we can test it. Everything back assembled, and we can now test if the card still boots. Beautiful. Looks promising. The card has already been running 2 minutes in firmmark. All looks good. And it's also fully detected in terms of all the PCIe lanes being present. Temperature looks all right. And I will just keep testing this for about half an hour to just make sure that the card fully works. And I will make use of this half hour to just show you the latest updates in both firmware and software of the WireView Pro 2. Mike will also get one from me just to make sure that he won't experience the same issue again. One of the big changes is that you're now able to change the color of the theme yourself. That's possible, as you can see, in the firmware version 4 together with the software 1.06. We also implemented more important features in the device itself if you just want to use it standalone without software. Especially if you scroll to the second page of the settings, then you can now change the lock interval, like how frequently the things are stored on the device. I would recommend to leave it at 60 seconds though. And you can also go to default screen. Well, not go to default screen, but you can set it. That will be the screen whenever you power on your system, which screen should be displayed. Not many people want the main screen. A lot of people want the current screen, which I set right here. And you could also change the averaging, which is the averaging setting for displaying all the values. I would recommend though to leave this at 1417 milliseconds. And that's the most important stuff that we changed on the device itself. We also had quite some trouble in between with the software because a couple of people were not able to flash the firmware. And it just took time to figure out what was going wrong. And there seemed to be a driver conflict of the DFU driver that a Thrustmaster is using. So for example, if you were using a Thrustmaster, I don't know, steering wheel, then their software was causing a driver conflict with our firmware updater, and that just wouldn't work. But we implemented workaround in the software, and that should all be fixed. But if you still have any problems, feel free to join the Grizzly Discord or post it on Reddit. And we will try our best to keep working on the software and also implement new features. Talking about implementing features, we also still have to work on the logging. It works fine on the device itself. It's logging all the data every 60 seconds. But if you read it out in software, it's still a little bit of a mess how it looks like. That's something we're still working on. There are a lot of small changes. For example, we changed the overview of the faults on the main screen. It was a little bit misleading with the checkboxes that were previously here. The monitoring is improved when it comes to auto scaling, so that it works pretty smooth now. On device, you can see I'm using firmware 04. And if you're struggling or if you don't know how to flash the firmware, there's a small instruction if you press the question mark, the tooltip. And then you just have to go through this like enter bootloader, and then it depends if you still have to bypass the other DFU driver thing or not, and then update firmware. So this is pretty much self-explaining, but if you have issues, you can always reach out to us. Then go to main screen is pretty helpful, so you don't have to open your system anymore. To press a button, for example, you can just control the WireView through software directly. If you, for example, want to move to current screen, you can just click on current or main to move back. We also renamed some of the faults right here to make it more clear what we're talking about. Previously it was, for example, OTP or OCP, and now we just renamed it. So it's more clear what we're talking about. And then on the bottom right here, you have the possibility to customize the design of your WireView entirely. And also very important thing, if you go to settings, then there is device screen after connection. This is the screen after power up, basically. So once your system powers on, and if you don't want to see the main screen, then you can always have the current screen visible if you want to select this one. There are obviously a lot more bug fixes and features that we changed after firmware 1 that I just talked about. For example, also that the screen fully shuts down if no current is detected for a certain amount of time. That means if your system is shut down, then the display will also shut down. So there's a lot of things we changed, and yeah, just keep looking for the latest software. And as I said before, if you have any feedback, issues, just reach out to us and we will try our best to solve it. We are also still working on the wired version, which will be the same as the current WireView that we have, just that it has a wire instead of the plug. And this will make it compatible, for example, with 5080, 5090, and all other cards that are currently listed as not compatible. It will also have like a metal backplate and things where you can attach it on the case and also on a graphics card in different positions. That will follow shortly, and also the white version. Shortly, in our terminology, Thermal Grizzly usually takes a bit longer, but I would say between 2 and 3 months we should have these things on the street. Meanwhile, the card passed the 30 minutes testing. Everything looks good, so I can return the card to Mike. He will also get a WireView, as I said before. And yeah, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time. Bye-bye.